G'day guys, just going to do a little bit of a demonstration for you, just a couple of simple soldering techniques. I've got an alpha pot here, which has got a bit of tarnishing surface imperfection on the outside of the pot. What I'm going to do is give it a clean up and then apply some solder to it in preparation for future use. What I've got is a bit of fine grade sandpaper. I'm going to give it a bit of a work over just on this section here. The trick is to just try and get it back to something looking nice and shiny. Takes a little bit of patience. You can use a fine file if you're very careful, although I find that steel wool, or in this case sandpaper, is just as good for the job. We just want to get that looking reasonably even. You can see there we've got a bit of a stripe. Just going to give that a wipe, get my thumbprint off it. Now, Electrolube solder flux pen. Very handy little bit of gear. I use it just about everywhere. It's got a bit of a black tip because I have a tendency of wiping it on burning hot surfaces, which doesn't really do very much good for it. Give that a nice little wipe over there. And what the flux will do is assist the resin core solder from to key to the metal. There's already flux inside the solder, as you may be aware, but a bit of extra flux in a situation like this where you've got an untinned surface will just help the medicine go down. Now I've got my adjustable temperature solder on here, a bit dirty. Give that a wipe on my sponge. You can use any old soldering iron cleaner you like. I've just got a sponge here. Now, first thing I'm going to do is apply heat. So any solder joint is only as good as the heat that's being applied to it. Now I'm going to just start adding the solder. Give it a bit of a ball on there. Now if you can see, I hope the camera is focused right, you can see that the solder is moving on its own accord because of the flux that's on the surface. I'll put a little drip more. I've not gone overboard with the volume of solder I've put on there. I've been very sparing. It's spreading just beautifully. So we've got heat in the surface. Now when you're doing something like this, like grounding to the back of a pot, you don't need to go nuts. You don't need to cover the whole pot in solder. You really want to avoid heating the whole rotten thing up if you can. Because while these are fairly sturdy, there's still some temperature sensitive components. I mean, after a while anything will be a bit temperature sensitive. So I'm just giving that a bit of a wipe over just to make sure that it has keyed. It's stuck there, it's not going anywhere, which is great. Now over the other side, I'm going to move this across. I've got a tag board. And I'm going to grab resistor out of my packet. What we're going to do is put the resistor across these two tags here. You don't necessarily need to do this with all new components, things you buy from JCar, but I'm going to do it anyway just to show a good process. Give these leads a quick clean. If you're using wanky new old stock resistors and capacitors you bought off eBay for $5 each, you'll definitely want to give them a little bit of a clean to get back to bright metal before you try and attach them in place. Get on those pliers away from the base of the resistor a little bit. Give it a bend across with the finger, and I'm going to give it another bend across with the finger. Adjust it up. I may have gone a bit small there, but it doesn't matter. Okay, I'm going to drop the resistor into position there, and I'm just going to give that a little bend across so that it's more inclined to want to stay. Just going to bend the back of those leads across as well. So that one there, at the moment, is pretty good. I would prefer to have that bent across a little bit more for a nice positive mechanical action, but at the moment that'll just sit there. I'm not going to worry about the extra flux on this particular job, because these are all ready to go. Okay, again I'm going to apply heat first, just have the soldering iron sitting there. Resistors are fairly resilient to temperature, and I'm just going to add the solder in there. I hope the camera can catch that. The solder, the flux inside the solder, has just wicked it into position. I've just used a tiniest little amount of solder, and it's forming its own little volcano shape at the bottom of the component. You'd look in a PCB situation, say you were soldering together a BYOC kit or something else on a PCB, you'll find that if you keep the soldering iron, the tip of the soldering iron in place, the solder will form its own little volcano shape around the base of the component. As heat is left onto it, it will just automatically do that. These ones are being a little funny, only because it's a large oval shaped hole to deal with in there. But I've got two nice solder joints there, and I have solder. I'll bend this back across. I have solder all the way around the component. It's a nice even shape all the way around. Not going anywhere. That is as tough as nails. In fact, I don't know whether you'll be able to see it, but from the underneath, the solder has formed its own small volcano shape around the bottom as well. So it's gone all the way through the hole. It's just nice solid mechanical action there. If I could suggest anything, the biggest, most useful tips would be to be using the heat out of your soldering iron to form your profiles and to form proper joints, as opposed to just dropping heaps of solder into the job. Avoid going overboard with solder. Don't have your big mountains. As whenever you've got more than the minimum amount of solder in position, you're likely to have voids and gaps in your join where corrosion can form. So yeah, hopefully that's useful to you.